Blog Talk Radio.
Warning, the following program may include profane language, controversial viewpoints, and perspectives on the true nature of reality so far removed from the status quo, they'll make your head spin like a top. Young children, corporate executives, and religious fundamentalists should turn away now.
What's up, Earthlings? Welcome to another edition of Extraordinary Year, the online show that puts everyday people like you with questions about 2012 on the road to understanding. I'm Tim Bravo, and I'm grateful you decided to join us tonight, one day after the spring equinox, and 274 days until December 21st, 2012. Also joining us tonight is James Gillan. James is from ECETI Ranch. Undoubtedly, many of the people out there listening will be more than familiar with James and his work. But for those who are not, ECETI Ranch stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And that's exactly what you guys do there on the ranch. Welcome to the show, James.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
I want to start by explaining that the whole point of our show is to reach people who are curious about this whole 2012 thing. You know, with that in mind, can you just kind of quickly explain to people who might be unfamiliar with your work what exactly it is you guys do there on the ECETI Ranch?
Well, ECETI stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and so we've taken a whole different approach. It's actually a healing center here, and we do a lot of intense spiritual practices, you know, Tibetan practices, yogic practices, and everything is focused on the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth and assisting people to make their own personal spirit, you know, creator, God connection, whatever you want to call it. That's our main focus, but in doing that work, we seem to rise to the occasion to greet some of these ultra-dimensionals and higher dimensional beings who, after, you know, years of working towards, you know, the awakening healing process, we seem to, you know, send out a call or a light of which they picked up, and then they started interacting with us here.
Amazing. You know, and as far as what this show does in 2012, we want people to come away with this, not with a fear-based scenario of what's going on this year, but with hope and understanding that people like you and people known as light workers enjoy. With the stuff that you're doing there, could you tell people what, as you understand it, what is in store for us as a civilization, as a planetary civilization, between now and the end of the year?
Well, basically, I just did another show a little while ago, and I told people there's two prophecies I can give with 100% accuracy, and that is things are going to change, and the unknown is going to be made known. So that's what we are in the middle of right now. You know, the apocalypse just means the great uncovering, you know, where everything is made known. And we're in the middle of that, and we're seeing, you know, a lot of shenanigans, you know, done by governments and banks and, you know, I can go on and industries and corporations, but all that is coming to the surface and being seen for what it is. So, you know, the politicians, all of that are just, you know, wearing their, you know, their insides on the outside now. And people are seeing that. And we're in the middle of a major revolution energy where people are just not accepting it anymore. They used to just, you know, as long as they had their SUV, you know, their apartment or whatever, their condo and their widescreen TV and football games, you know, they weren't going to rock the boat or say anything because it wasn't being made personal. But now, with all the bank foreclosures and all the homeless people and loss of jobs and everything else going on out there, and just an economy that's in the toilet despite what they're trying to tell us, you know, it has been made personal. And people are just seeing the unbridled greed and the corruption and what's really going on, and that's all coming to a head. And I think what's around the corner is going to be the reaction to this and accountability.
And I'm ready for it. You talk about the energies, and I assume that we are all feeling it. I often have co-hosts come in on this show who are kind of the new guy on the block as far as these ideas, these concepts go, whereas I've been researching for a long time. So I'm kind of, I can't really say, because I'm ready for it all to come down to, for everything to just completely change, that the entire planet is feeling that same energy. But are you getting independent confirmation from people around the world that, people really are just, as a whole, really just starting to wake up and be done with this game and really want to put it behind us? Because I know I'm ready.
Oh, definitely. I've just seen amazing, one of the things I think is first and foremost on the agenda right now that we need to address, and I don't know if you've had Michael Murphy on your show or not, he'd be a good guest, but he did the film, What on Earth Are They Spraying? Oh, no, What in the World Are They Spraying? And he has a sequel out now that is, why in the world are they spraying? That topic right now, beyond anything, should be like Occupy Sky or First Agenda on Anonymous or
Chemtrails.
Or whatever, because without a planet, nothing else matters. And the global spraying, the aerosol spraying program, where they're just dumping billions of tons of aluminum and barium,
strontium,
other biologicals, in the air, and some say radiation as well. I don't know. They said they have so much nuclear waste that they can't put it in the oceans anymore, bury it. So, I've heard all these different stories about what's going on there, but one thing I do know is when they do this heavy chemtrail spraying, people in my town here all get sick. They have, severe upper respiratory problems followed by gastrointestinal problems. The land here, the grasses are growing about 1/3 of what they used to grow. The forests are not doing too well. Aluminum blocks the uptake of water and nutrients into the root system. There's so many things going on. It's almost like somebody has decided to do a total genocidal assault on humanity and nature as well. So that topic alone really needs to be first and foremost. We need to deal with that one. Look at who's funding these things.
But how do we get the general public to understand that those streaks across the sky aren't water vapor?
Well, it's very easy. Do the research. Recently, it's been sent out that Bill Gates has put millions of dollars into this aerosol spraying program, the chemtrail program. He also owns a major amount of stock in Monsanto, which is creating aluminum-resistant seeds and things of that nature. The GMO crops now they're finding out are actually killing people's kidney cells. They're destroying people's kidneys. They're going after the genitals. They've got some real severe side effects. I know Roundup and No Bud they're putting on the potatoes is causing severe damage, to the physical body, especially the male genitals. So it's sterilizing and actually creating cancer and all these other problems there. But you look at this whole picture, with the aspartame and the fluoride in the water, all the other chemicals that are starting to show up, estrogen mimickers, everything else. It's just over the top right now.
Like you said, an all-out assault.
Yeah,
what's
a mass
the silver lining?
Sterilization program.
I mean, these things are horrendous, and they've barely got anybody who's even on to them for like you said, the general public. They're not even noticing it, and they're content. They don't want to rock that boat. So, the boat is being rocked right now because I'm seeing all over the internet all of these nature websites and wholeness websites, and all of these people are now coming after this, and they're really nailing it, and they're going after Monsatan, is what I call them. Yeah,
and,
I know you do. I belong to your email list, and I always enjoy every day the great stuff that we get from you. And Monsatan is one I've actually taken on, and I've actually used that one, but I give you credit.
Yeah, so I'm sure somebody came up with it before me. But anyway, what they're doing is the bottom line satanic. If if you believe in the devil and everything else, I think they're perfect operators under that program. But you look at the inoculations that they're doing around the world, filled with thimerosal, the mercury in them, and
right.
It's just insane. I mean, they're picking up the aluminum and barium 6,000 times over the toxic level in the snowpacks. I mean, that's affecting everything, not just humans, the whole planet. So, I mean, not to put a bummer on people, but this is a reality, and we need to go check into it and check out, Michael Murphy's work. That, what in the world are they spraying? Check it out and support the new one, because he's bringing all the information out with all the physicists and everybody else involved. But, all the other movements don't matter if this isn't stopped. This is something that really needs to be stopped right away.
And I would love to see that happen. But barring, a mass awakening of people, which could happen, but between now and the end of the year, is there maybe something else that might break things loose? And, I mean, how are we going to get from where we are today to being a society that understands all these things that have been done against us, done in our name, done right under our noses on such a vast scale, on a planetary scale, for such a long time? How do we get from here to there? Where's that silver lining? What do people have to hope for?
Yeah, the best approach really would to get a panel of people that are, let's say, very spiritually advanced people that have a long track record of service to humanity, and get this group together, get a panel. I know Alfred Weber created one of those tribunals where they actually tried the Bush family and found them guilty of war crimes and all kinds of other things. But we really need a group like that, and then a truth and reconciliation panel where people will come and, straighten this thing out, because, there has to be a forgiveness panel for one thing, but then also something with some teeth in it to stop this nonsense. So, like Mandela did, they had something very similar where they gave people, a chance to apologize for what they've done, stop doing it, and then they would forgive them and say, okay, now you can work towards straightening this out, or, some kind of movement in that direction. But and that's about the only thing that is going to happen. Our government now over in the States here is totally non-responsive to the people, and it's not really ours anymore. It's the corporations. So people are being aware of that, and that's why this huge movement, this big Occupy movement and all these other things are happening. But at the same time, these wacky, zany people we call senators and congressmen, are writing these crazy laws and signing them,
and they're getting signed too.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they are pure treason, basically. They go against the Constitution. There's no way other than seeing that, basically. And, now we've lost all of our rights. They can arrest you anytime, anywhere. The government can come in, throw you in a concentration camp, or ship you off to Gitmo, and even torture you if they feel they need to. And at the same time, they could actually send a drone up and assassinate you, even here in the States. So people think this is not true, that's crazy making, or that's conspiracy. But, the bills are right there.
Exactly.
I mean, they're all over.
It's been codified into law. The possibility is there. Anybody with any understanding of the law is going to look at that and say, well, yeah, they could use it to do exactly what you're talking about. It's right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the latest one, no protesting. That's against the law now. So all of our rights,
what happened to the First Amendment, grievances that we were offered?
Right to assembly, even the right to practice your spiritual beliefs is being shut down. It's like, we can't even drink raw milk, without the Gestapo kicking our door down.
Yeah, and walnuts are a drug now.
It's gone beyond insanity, and it really needed to go there for people to finally rise up and say enough. And I think that's where we're at right now. This spring, we're going to see Arab Spring coming to America, and it might get a little turbulent for a while, but it's a good thing, because I call them the powers that were, just cannot keep running this total manufactured lack and poverty program that they've got going, and just the unbridled greed is insane, and enslaving people through dependency. All this stuff is going to implode, because it doesn't align with unity consciousness, and that is what we're in right now. That ninth wave of unity consciousness just passed through. It began in March, and that's going to continue to grow exponentially. So what's happening now is the selfish me program and the separation game is over, and this a new program is coming in, and those who can't align with it are basically going to implode.
That's your understanding of it, then. Okay. Implode from a spiritual point of view. They don't have the frequency to keep up, and we're talking about a spiritual frequency here.
Exactly. They're no longer specific, frequency specific to the Earth, and the Earth is evolving. She's moving to the next level. There is an awakening healing process, an ascension process underway, and those who are holding the frequency of tyranny and separation and greed, those people are just going to implode. I mean, their karma's going to come home to roost. It's all going to be, amplified. That constrictive, closed heart program is going to create a lot of heart attacks, with these people. Their health is going to fail. There's going to be so many problems with those who want to hold on to these old programs and these old ways, and their entire kingdoms are going to collapse, along with their physical bodies. So, if things are not, service-oriented and aligned with universal law or the universal principles necessary for a healthy society and environment, those programs and institutions are going to implode. They're just going to crumble in on themselves.
So the way I understand Ascension, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because to me that is the silver lining, and that all these horrible things are happening, but the way I understand Ascension is it doesn't really matter because there's a time limit here, and things are going to change whether they want them to change or not, and so there's going to be a disclosure of sorts of how they have done things, all the things that they have withheld from us in the way of truth, in the way of energy devices, in the way of just what they do against us in our own name. And that's going to end regardless.
Yeah. What's really interesting, in 1982, I wrote these books, Reunion with Source and Becoming Gods. And in those books, it talks about all of these times. And it talks about the expanding sun, the escalation of earth changes, the erratic weather, the storms, all of these things. And it talks about the international banksters and their program and where that was going to go. But it's funny, all the way back in 82, it covered all this, and it's all unfolding right on cue. But the end result...
channeled through Ezekiel, or channeled through you from Ezekiel.
Yes, that was back in 82. But what's really the good news is the end result of all of this stuff is that this stuff all comes to a head, and it collapses in on itself. And just like the Native American prophecies, they talk about a beast, and they say the beast is 2,000 miles wide, which is the reign of the beast. It reigns for 2,000 years. And they say it's all-consuming. It just has to control and dominate everyone and everything. And just when you think, there's no hope left, the beast consumes itself. And then the golden age starts, and the star nations return. Our off-world brothers and sisters return, and the earth is healed very quickly, and we go on a very rapid healing process until we, basically go back to Eden.
I'll take it. Well, and as someone who has contact with our space brothers and sisters, with this ascension timeline that we've talked about, the 2012 underground, there are a lot of rumblings of arrests that are beginning to start, that apparently have started, but that soon will become something that the world can't ignore in a big way. The truths will begin to come out, and part of the truth will be extraterrestrial reality. In your contact with them, are they? Now, I don't want you to predict anything, but are they giving you indications of what they plan to do, how that plans to unfold?
What's really interesting is that they've been talking about a 3-week schedule where things are happening, or it's just going to be undeniable, and it's already happening, which is interesting because these UFOs are appearing all around the world, and we're seeing whole fleets of these ships flying around, major cities and countries. And, you go on YouTube, and it's all over YouTube. I mean, granted, there are some fakes, and there are a lot of disinformation programs out there. A good example is the Dome of the Rock. The ship that came down over the Dome of the Rock and lit up the city, 3 or 4 people filmed that and got some incredible footage of that. And then soon after, the whole internet was flooded with fakes.
Yeah, somebody had taken a picture and put it in there, yeah.
And that's what they do. That's what the disinformation people do. As soon as a real event happens, they try to flood, the net and the papers, whatever's going on with a different story or fake CGIs. And so, but, there was way too many witnesses and people that actually saw this, and the people that filmed it came forward and said, hey, I filmed this, and I had multiple witnesses and things like that. So anyway, that's the name of the game. But, they are stepping it up. They're here now in mass, more than they've ever been before. And, they're all starting to decloak and say, hey, we're here, and just flying over major cities now. So that's going to escalate, and there's just going to be some just amazing footage coming out, and the press won't be able to deny it. They'll have to cover it because whole cities are going to be watching it.
Yeah, like New York, but what was it, 2010, October? Mm-hmm. Middle of the day?
Yeah, that's a classic example, and Chicago, O'Hare over the airport, China over the airport there, shutting down, the airport. Mexico, it's almost an everyday occurrence there, with whole fleets flying over the cities, and Peru is having, a lot of activity. Even the government and the military in Peru are talking about contact that they've had and even interacting with them. So with all the major countries blowing the whistle on it, it seems like, good old USA, land of the free and, freedom of speech and all these other things seem to have the lid on this. They're one of the last ones to actually come forward and start telling the truth.
Well, when you have it as the home of the big power brokers of the planet, and these are the people who will bat down each and every actual UFO event and have its credibility questioned through disinformation. They have to do this, because if they were to admit that it was a reality and that they've known it was a reality, they'd have to admit everything that they've held from us and lied from us. And like I said before, the people would come from them like they'd been told to eat cake.
Yeah. The real censorship program started about 60 years ago, but before that, it was in all the frescoes, the church frescoes. Yeah. Everybody pretty much accepted, that this is probably a reality. All other cultures all just accept it, especially South American cultures and Mexico. They just, of course they exist. They see it as a very spiritual thing. But, it was right. It wasn't until after Roswell when they started back engineering, got some crash sites and started back engineering the technology, is when it really started to come down. The cover-up started coming down, and the giggle factor and the ridicule factor. And basically the main reason behind that is they didn't want, the world to know that they had some craft and that they were back engineering these craft.
And then there's the Eisenhower Agreement.
Yeah, exactly. And then he hooked up with them and made an agreement, and kind of traded our DNA, and abductions as for technology, and that went bad. We had a choice to actually align with another group that said that they would work with us on the condition that we get rid of our nukes, and choose a path of peace. And they didn't, the Cold War was going on and all these other programs, and they wouldn't do that. So our nukes won't work anyway. They've all been disabled. They're all useless right now anyway. They don't want people to know that. But, the bottom line, the off-worlders are never going to allow us to be launching any nukes anywhere. That's just not going to happen.
So scratch that off your list of fears.
Yeah, Robert Salas was actually here at the ranch, and he got to see some of the UFOs here, and he saw a green one flying all around the mountain while he was here, and I was talking to him in depth about that, and he was at Malmstrom, where they actually took these massive iron lids off of the silos and went in there and deactivated the nuclear material, everything in there, and disarmed them completely, and then took off. And that's also been done in Russia. It was done over in England. That Rendlesham Forest incident over there. Right. Same thing happened there. That's top secret. They're not telling people what really happened there because they weren't supposed to have nukes over there. That was a secret. But they in Russia they went and activated their system and ran it up to zero and then shut it down. Totally freaked them out. But they've also shot down a lot of tests where we've actually shot missiles up with nukes on them, test flights and things like that, and they've just taken them right out. And I believe, and I'm not sure that, and I heard I saw one guy talking about how they sent this rocket and they were going to detonate a nuke on the moon, and in the process of doing this, that was shot down as well. So there's a lot of inside stories about these UFOs just flying circles around our rockets and taking them out whenever they want.
But it's not just inside stories. I believe it was last year that we got the October incident that we actually had a colonel that was there. I think it was in the Huffington Post. It was a fairly mainstream story about the ones that were hovering over out in Montana, I believe it was, and shut down the nukes
that
there.
was I think it's Malmstrom, or I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. And I think that was Robert Salas that came forward with that one, and then it was verified by several other people that were involved. And so
it's kind of confirmed by the soldiers on the ground. But we're talking. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that a colonel was mentioned, and so the officers are talking
about quite
it.
A few. Yeah, there's quite a few colonels that have come forward, and people with all the credentials have come forward, and the head of the FAA and all of these people have come forward and just said, these are appearing on our radar. They're here. We don't know who they are, but they're not ours.
But extraterrestrials aren't the only things that you deal with at the ranch. You guys recently had the map makers do a documentary, and they were talking about fairies showing up and children seeing fairies, and you guys actually have photos on the website that are, as somebody who's done quite a few spirit photography sessions himself, I can tell you, I look at your photos and see all the trademarks of actual spirit photography when it comes to orbs, when it comes to vortices, vortexes, what have you. And you guys have some really interesting stuff, and the fairies, to me particularly, were very interesting but to have that on film. So you guys have just fantastic stuff happening there, from the spiritual point. You guys had Master Khan there, and he was taking cell phone pictures in dark rooms and getting entities on camera. What is the most...
that was out in the field. We call it the field of dreams, and it's the vortex and where this incredible energy happens. And we had a manifestation of Kuan Yin appear here. We had Mary appear here twice and got beautiful photographs. We actually got a photograph of Ezekiel's energy, which is just pure gold and white light with these wings on it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I saw that. So bright, you can just barely make out what look like they might be the tips of the wings, yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many different photographs have been taken here, and it's a place where everybody is unique and they have their own connections. And some people are connected to the nature kingdom, some people are connected to the masters, some people are connected to the ultra-dimensionals and the UFOs, and so whatever you're focused on or connected to, that seems to the veils come down for you, so you can have that experience here.
Now, that brings me to the land that you guys are on, because it's right at the foot of Mount Adams, which is it a dormant volcano?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most dormant volcanoes in the system. St. Helens went off, and that took all the pressure off this area. Mount Hood is doing the old sulfur fart routine a little bit, but we're pretty safe here where we are.
So, is it on a grid point, an Earth grid point? Why do you guys have such strong energy there, I guess is my question.
Well, it's a combination of things. One, it's a vortex, it's a power spot, whatever you want to call it. There's major magnetic lines. Some people call them dragon lines or Michael lines, or there's different names for them, or ley lines, basically, that go right through the property here and converge. And what's interesting is these lines, when they converge, you'll actually see, it looks like a highway of light beings or orbs or things like that seem to follow these lines. And it's quite interesting when you start understanding the higher mechanics, and get up, start going up through the vibrational continuum of what's happening here. It's a very fascinating place.
So what's the most interesting thing you've seen there? It's just, you live there. What's the most fantastic thing you personally experienced at the ranch?
Well, it's a tough one. I think that the most powerful thing I experienced, I've had face-to-face contact in the physical with some of these beings, But the most powerful one is when I was doing a meditation. I was actually in the bathtub, and this beam of light came down through the wall. And I asked for it. I said, I want to know what's up. What's my connection here? Why is this happening to me? I don't care if it kills me. I want to know. I want to know the truth. And I was meditating, and this beam comes through the wall. And these 3 balls of light come down the beam and hit me in the chest. And those beams, those balls of energy were my memories, my ancient memories of the past, and they're filled with consciousness and energy. And so after that, for quite a while, I was having this just rapid-fire past lives, seeing the whole thing, getting the emotional energy from that lifetime of who I was. And it was just amazing. And then the next thing you know, I was up on the ship, and I was face-to-face with a being that was not of this world. She was more of almost I'd say a plasma being or an energy being. Very, very beautiful woman. Looked like all races combined into one. Huh. And her name was Malia, and she was part of the Orion Council of Light. And that was, I would have to say, that was probably the most amazing experience that I had.
Well, that's a hell of an experience, brother.
Yeah.
So the Orion Council of Light has just been independently confirmed. I've seen postings of them, from them, about them, and always wondered if my discernment was out on that one. And so I guess there's no denying it. If you actually,
J.J. Hurtak has written a lot about them, and he said they're the true geneticists, and that's where the true gnosis of God is held and originates. It's quite interesting, his take on it. And the beings that I saw and that I drew were almost identical to one of his videos that he put out, which was amazing. So that confirmation, was there as well. But they definitely do exist. And I had a near-death experience where I drowned, and I went through the tunnel of light and went through all the planes and dimensions, and ended up in that pure golden white light, that just plane of bliss, and had a conversation there. And those 2 experiences, I would say, are the top. That's really hard act to follow.
I had a conversation earlier tonight with Scott Jordan from Spectrum Radio Network, and
yes.
He was telling me about an experience he had in a golden white light, just kind of like what you mentioned. And it's kind of interesting. He also confirms, by the way, that it was retired Colonel Walter Feigl at Malmstrom Base that was talking about those UFOs, or the UFO that was hovering to shut down the nukes.
Yeah, and Robert Salas was there as well. So the Colonel verified Salas's story, and I think he was the first one to come out with it. I may be wrong, but...
Oh, you're probably completely right. It's probably both of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am on your mailing list, like I said, and I have to thank you for being alerted to a lot of news and content I probably otherwise wouldn't. And just tonight, you sent out an earthquake warning for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. This is based on a perceived 188-day cycle between major earthquakes recently. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's another guy's work. I thought it was fascinating, and that's the first time I've really heard of his work. But he was talking about the planetary alignments and actually some kind of a rogue planet coming through that they're observing. A combination of all of that and the cycle where we align with Leo. But I found it interesting that the other major quakes all appeared at that same time, that same setup. So. We just had, he put this information out before the 2 big quakes in Mexico that just happened. And I thought that was interesting because some of the first readings were like 8.4 as far as this quake, and now they're finding out that there was 2 of them, and it went from 7.9 to 7.6. I'm not sure what the end result is because they always downsize them. It seems like USGS always downsizes the quakes.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting that this guy put this information out quite a while ago, and this is that window. And it's usually when you give a date like that in alignment, there's usually 3 days on either side of it that a major event happened. And for those 2 quakes to bust loose like that in Mexico, on that in that window, I thought was amazing. And then also at the same time, my intuition and feeling is that, it's definitely not over, that there's some other, really big changes to come. And we are getting a lot of help in this. Our off-world brothers and sisters have intervened in a very big way to help us get through these changes. And I think the most important thing right now is a little gratitude on behalf of Earth for all the work they're doing and the consciousness and energy work they're doing and helping us clean up the planet and getting rid of some of these regenerative ETs that have been running amok down here. It's so important that we start showing a little gratitude and maybe, not just giving thanks, but invite them to help us more, and invite the divine intervention. Spend days meditating or not days, but, an hour a day or half an hour a day and just give thanks and ask if they will, help us get through these changes and intervene more, because a lot of things, their hands are tied. They can't interfere with free will and our own evolution and choice. But if we choose as a nation, or as a group to ask and invite this help, then they can come in, in a much stronger fashion.
And I think a lot of us have actually been doing that for a time. But, people who are, just think of E.T. as Paul, from the movie, they're probably not, they're not on the wavelength yet where they realize that they can contact these beings. They can, just telepathically send out messages to them, and they will be received, because telepathic communication is a human reality, and therefore it's a spiritual reality. And
definitely.
So,
we've proven redundantly that the ships are scanning us. They know our intent. They're telepathically connected to us. We've given the exact time and date of ships, appearing at the ranch. And it was very well documented in Paranormal State. We gave the exact time and location where a ship would come and power up, and it did. And they had their cameras waiting, and it powered up right on film, lit the whole sky up, and then dropped down and went off around the treetop level, back around the corner, around the mountain. So when you do this over and over again redundantly, eventually you have to come to the conclusion that maybe contact has been made, and maybe it's been going on for 25 years here, and it's time to get over looking into the past or all these other things and find out not just whether they exist, but who are they and why are they here.
Well, and so the ones that live in your neighborhood, I assume that you feel it's it's an ET base, it's a UFO base. They actually do come in and out of that mountain, correct?
Yeah, that was pretty much established back in I think it was 47, when Kenneth Arnold saw them landing on the western slopes of Mount Adams, and we actually have footage of doors opening on the base. But when you go to that area where the doors open, all there is this massive lava face. There's nothing there. But this huge light just appears on the mountain, and then things start coming in and out. So they have the ability to actually open a door in matter and go in and out, and then close the door, and everything just reforms.
Which makes total sense, and which I believe reflects something that we learned from the Italian friendship case, where they would be able to make things appear in the ground. Basically just take the ground back and then put it back the way they found it when they were done with it. Yeah,
pretty much. There's massive caverns here. They did ground penetrating radar here, and they found just a massive cavern all the way from Mount Adams to Goldendale. And I had another scientist here that had these 3 antennas and oscilloscopes and everything, and he was monitoring any movement whatsoever. And he said, I hate to tell you this, but you've got movement underneath you. So
how long have they been there?
What's that?
Have they just taken up residence recently to oversee Ascension? My understanding is they've been there for a while.
I think they've been here before Atlantis and Lemuria. They've been there a long, long time and just choose not to interface with us. And the Native Americans used to work with them, and they would teach them all these healing practices and spiritual ways, and when somebody broke a leg or was very sick or dying, they would take them up to the door up there, and they would take them inside, and they would come right back out in a short amount of time, just completely healed. So those are their legends about, the off-worlders. But they said that because of man's aggressiveness and technology and misuse of technology, they had to break off any further communication. So they pretty much closed the door on that program.
Pretty much. So are you saying that some of the natives maybe still have connection with an interaction with the beings in the mountain?
Well, I know they do in ceremony, and they do telepathically, and I've heard things that about certain ships interacting with certain people. So it's still going on. The people that told me about this, I can't really divulge the rest of it, but it's still going on, and there's also intervention to stop it, from certain agencies like black helicopters and things like that.
Which you guys have actually, you have video of helicopters and fighter jets buzzing the ranch, and
we have tons of black helicopter footage and F-15s, black F-15s and F-16s, no markings on them whatsoever. In the documentary, when Mike and Amy were here filming the documentary, we actually had an incident where this massive UFO was flying towards the moon, and I was filming it, and then I was filming this jet in hot pursuit of this UFO, and all of a sudden the jet just disappeared. It had the afterburners going and everything, its lights on, and then the next thing you know, the lights went off, no sound. You could actually see it because it was a full moon. It was very bright, and you could actually see this, a little speck. You could see the jet, itself. You could see, plus the lights and the afterburners and everything. But the weird thing is it just vanished. All of a sudden there was no sound, no lights, nothing. It just vanished. And some people are going, well, it went into stealth mode or whatever, which is a possibility. But I doubt it. I extremely doubt that's what happened. But the jet just vanished. And then the next day, there was 3 jets that came back and were flying all around the ranch and treetop level and looking down at us and flying circles around the ranch. And I think they were looking for their buddy, actually.
Man, so they took them off, and the technology went away, the plane went away. But I've heard that they say that through channelings, through telepathic communications, that they will not actually kill a pilot in that situation, but they just remove them from the situation, then get rid of the vehicle.
Yeah, pretty much. I was thinking, it would be funny to just teleport them in time, and have them looking down at dinosaurs trying to find a landing spot, but they're a lot more humane than that.
Okay, we have joining us now Scott Jordan from Spectrum Radio. Scott,
great.
Welcome.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Doing great. Welcome to the show.
Hey James, how you doing, buddy? Haven't talked to you in a little while. Well, it's been a couple weeks anyway. I just had a quick question for you. I wanted to know what the relationship between, if any, between you and the local Indians was. Is it a good relationship? Are you on good terms?
Yes, we are. I haven't seen the people that I was working with, so I haven't seen them recently, but, they were very happy that we were doing this, that we were bringing the information out, because, people were making fun of them. They're going, you're just a bunch of drunk Indians, is what they were saying, and things like that, and it was very, nobody was taking them serious. So with us documenting this and actually documenting the tribal police and the regular police and the triple PhD Boeing engineers here, and even Air Force base commanders that have come here, and Lockheed engineers now, it has credibility, and it's kind of like you'd say honor's been restored.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. How about is there a relationship between the local Indians and any of if there's a base inside the mountain, which, I've read there is, does the local Indians have a relationship or any sort of interaction with the beings that would be in that base?
I have heard that some do. I was trying to track that down, and they're very closed-mouthed about it, which I don't blame them. And
of course,
I haven't been able to track that down or actually nail that down at all. But from what I heard is that they kind of stopped communication on a major scale like they did in the past. And I think just with a few people, probably some elders or people that were living, a wholesome spiritual life or whatever, those people, they kept a gate open or a doorway open for them.
And those would be the people that would be more likely to keep their mouths shut.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. There is a story, and it's been pretty well known where there was on the reservation, a black helicopter intruded and came down and was harassing some people there and said that they have a right to go wherever they want. And they were met with quite a large contingent of Native Americans with arms saying, "No, you don't." And they basically had to take off and leave, and that was the end of the story. But they don't want to talk about those things. They just want that ended. They don't want to. They don't want any more trouble. But that it is their it's sacred ground there. It's their reservation, and they have a right.
Yeah. It's their space. They're the ones that know their history, and they probably learned from experience that keeping their history to themselves is more than likely a good idea.
Yeah, and not opening the door to some of these elements, that would like to come in and screw things up.
Yeah, well, far be it from the Great White Father in Washington to stick to his word and let them keep their land. They might think it's theirs, but I'm going to guess black helicopter pilots don't care what treaty says.
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of a tricky thing, Those guys go wherever they want and do whatever they want, and they have the toys to do that. And every once in a while, somebody just says enough, And I know the benevolent ETs are the third-party interveners, and they greatly supersede those guys, So they can end that program, as soon as they want to.
You have another question, Scott?
Oh, I've got tons of questions. I could go on all night. I do have one more question. James, would you mind sharing your story of when you met the female Bigfoot?
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. Basically, I won't say where it was because I don't want people traipsing around there and going after them or harassing them. And there's a lot of Bigfoot in our area. There's a lot of research going on here with scientists and people. It's probably one of the most researched areas because there is a lot of Bigfoot activity here. But I actually was with a group of people, and it was a full moon, and the sky was very bright, and I heard a howl it almost sounded like a morbid drunk man that just lost his dog and his family and everything else along with it. That's the only way I could explain it. And it was the most eerie thing I've ever heard. And soon as I snapped up after hearing that, I go, God, that was Bigfoot. That had to be Bigfoot. There's nothing else that could make that call. And I've heard, mountain lions mating and bears and all these other things. And I know what they sound like. And they do sound pretty freaky, but this was something I'd never heard before. And so I got out of the car. I was camping with these people, and we were in a van. And when I heard it, I got out of the car, and I wanted to go check it out. And they just freaked out and locked all the doors. And I go, relax, And I didn't feel threatened at all by it. I felt it was going to be okay. And so I could hear where it was, and it was a clearing area, and it was a sandy wash next to a lake. And so I walked up to it, and, I walked around the corner, and there it was sitting on a log with a couple little bushes in front of it. And it was just sitting there, and I stopped, and I just held my hands out, and I just sent it as much love as I could, saying, hey, do you need help? Are you all right? And I was trying to communicate with it telepathically and let it know And it just sat there, and it wouldn't stand up. It just sat there looking at me for a minute, and I just stayed there, and we sat there and stared at each other for a while. And then finally it sat up, and it stood up, and I went, whoa, this thing is big, and it stood up, and it walked.
Were you guys?
I was only about 50 feet away from it, and it stood up, and it was a full moon, very bright, the light coming off the lake, and very bright, and it stood up, and it walked across right in front of me sideways, and looked at me and kind of nodded and smiled, and I kind of got the impression like, thanks, but no thanks. I appreciate your offer, but we just don't deal with humans. We don't trust humans. And that was kind of the thing I got, but I was just so grateful to have that experience and even see that these things are real. I've always been curious about them. But I could tell it was a female, it had breasts, and it was very more human looking than ape, totally upright, walked very upright, and the difference was that they don't have much of a neck. Their head is very close to their shoulders, but it didn't smell either. But I was upwind from it, so it didn't have any of that skunk ape smell that everybody talks about. This one, for all I know, it just got through swimming in the lake, or something. But I don't know. But I felt very. I didn't feel threatened at all by it in any way whatsoever. And, the really weird part of the story is Tom Dongo was living with me in Santa Cruz, and he was one of the original remote viewers, very gifted. And when I got home, we didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have anything. And he goes, I was remote viewing you. And I go, well, you never guess what happened to us, when we were in the forest. And he goes, Bigfoot. And I go, what are the odds of that? And then he goes, it was a female. And I go, okay, this is crazy, seeing both, knowing it was a female too. And then I asked him why it was making that morbid call. It sounded like it was hurt or wounded or something. And he said, no, I remote viewed it. She lost her daughter and was very distraught and very upset, and that's why I got so close to it. And I said, can you remote view the daughter? What happened? And was she hurt or anything? And he said, no, the daughter's with the others. They found her. And I go, what do you mean others? And he said, there's a whole tribe of them there.
Oh, so she's survived. She was just lost.
Yeah, well, the mother was looking for the daughter.
Okay.
And that's what happened. And the daughter was with the others. The rest.
When
of
you
the
said
group.
She'd lost her daughter, I thought maybe she was mourning her daughter.
Yeah, she was. She was mourning her daughter because she couldn't find her and thought something had happened to her. And the Tom in his remote viewing said the daughter was with the others. That
is an amazing story. I think it takes three balls of light and a trip to the Orion Council of Light to top that story.
Yeah. It was a mind blower, but there's so many stories here. The American Academy of Science did a whole research into this up here, and they have tons and tons of people that have seen it with very detailed descriptions and very thorough investigation. Like, were you on drugs? Were you drinking? Do you wear glasses? They asked all these major questions, and then what was significant about it? What was its features? How tall was it? Where was it standing? What was it next to? They're very thorough. And, what's interesting, you read the stories and you go, my God, these are all adding up down to details of, people seeing the same thing. And
obviously it's real.
Some very prominent people that they
James,
interviewed.
We only have a minute left on the show, so real quick, I want to ask you, December 21st, what's going to happen?
To be honest with you, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I know that the off-worlders are here in force, and they're getting ready for a major graduation. I don't know if it's going to happen exactly on that date. I think there's going to be a lot of things happen to different people because we're all making choices and we're all unique. But I think between now and then it's going to be quite an exciting ride, and it's going to involve everything from earth changes to off-worlders to masters actually appearing and assisting us to get through these times.
Thank you, James. Thank you for joining us tonight. I think that's it for us. So check us out, facebook.com/extraordinary year, and we'll archive this show. James, thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, take care.